I never imagined I'd have to call the police on my own property. Yet there I was, watching squad cars pull into my driveway while a middle-aged woman in a pastel cardigan stood on my lawn, shrieking like she owned the place. "He's trespassing. I want him removed immediately," she screamed, pointing at me like I was some intruder. The officers approached carefully, clearly trying to understand the scene unfolding in front of them. One of them, a tall man with kind eyes, asked for my ID. I calmly handed over my driver's license. "I moved in last month," I told him. "This is my home. I don't even know who this woman is or why she's claiming I don't belong here." Her face turned crimson. "That's ridiculous. I'm the owner's wife. My husband and I have owned this property for years. He's lying." Another officer radioed in my information while the first tried to keep things from escalating. I stood firm, unsettled but confident. I had nothing to hide. A few tense minutes passed. The radio crackled back with a response and the officer's tone shifted. "Ma'am," he said sternly, "according to county records, this man purchased the property 5 weeks ago. He's the legal owner." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, completely speechless. This house was my dream. I'd saved for nearly 10 years, pinching every dollar, skipping vacations, and sacrificing extras just to buy my first home. It wasn't extravagant, just a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet, well-kept suburb. There was even a homeowners association, strict, but I didn't mind. I wanted a place that looked cared for. What I hadn't counted on her was Karen. I didn't know her name at first. On day 2, she introduced herself as Mrs. Wilkins, the president of the Sunny Pines HOA. She showed up at my door, binder in hand, with a forced smile and a list of rules. No visible trash cans, lawns mowed weekly, no overnight parking on the street, the usual HOA fare. I thanked her and said I'd review everything. But she didn't stop. 3 days later, I was unloading furniture from a rental truck. She reappeared. "Deliveries are only allowed between 9 and 5 on weekdays," she barked, even though it was only 4:30 on a Friday. When I politely pointed that out, she scoffed, muttered something about new people not understanding how things work, and walked away. Then came the notes. About my grass being too long by half an inch, the color of my garden hose. Even a complaint that I left my porch light on overnight, apparently violating Section 12, Paragraph 4. I stayed courteous. I adjusted where I could. I stood my ground when needed. Then things got weird. She began questioning whether I had any right to live there at all. "I knew the Hendersons well," she said one afternoon, referring to the previous owners. "They'd never sell to someone like you." The phrase "someone like you" made my stomach turn. Still, I stayed calm. "I bought the house legally. Everything's in order," I assured her. She narrowed her eyes. "I'd like to see your lease agreement." "I don't have one," I replied. "I own the house." "That's impossible," she snapped. "The Hendersons would have told me." And she stormed off. Soon the harassment ramped up. She started spying on me, taking photos, watching me grill, even inspecting my trash on collection day. She claimed it was an HOA inspection. Then I received a formal letter from the HOA citing me for unauthorized occupancy. When I called the number, on the letterhead, the board member on the other end was just as confused as I was. Turns out, Karen had sent the letter without the board's approval. They promised to address it. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The next week, I left for a 3-day business trip. Before leaving, I locked up tight and asked a neighbor to collect my mail. When I returned late Sunday night, my front door key didn't work. The lock had been changed. A printed notice taped to the door read, "Property under HOA custody. Owner's spouse has reclaimed residence." I was stunned. Thankfully, I'd hidden a spare key in the backyard. I used it to enter through the rear. Inside, everything looked untouched, but I was furious. I called the non-emergency police line, documented everything, and planned to file a report the next morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard someone fiddling with the front door. It was Karen, key in hand. I yanked the door open. "What exactly are you doing?" I demanded. Startled, she dropped the key. "How did you get in here?" she snapped. "This home is under HOA management. I reclaimed it on the owner's behalf." "This is my house," I said. "You changed the locks illegally, and now you're trying to break in." She snarled. "You're the trespasser. I know the Hendersons still own this house. Mrs. Henderson is a friend. You're threatening me. I'm calling the police." She dialed 911 right there on my porch. "There's an intruder," she told the dispatcher with faux panic in her voice. "He's in my friend's home. I'm afraid for my safety." Police arrived minutes later. Karen launched into her performance, claiming I had broken in and was squatting illegally. "I'm the owner's wife," she said with authority. "He has no right to be here." An officer turned to me. "Do you have ID or proof of residence?" I handed them everything: driver's license, deed, and closing paperwork. The officers reviewed the documents carefully. "These are in order," one said. "He purchased the property 5 weeks ago." Karen's confidence cracked. "Those must be fake. I just spoke to Mrs. Henderson." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we're going to verify that. But first, we'll need to see your ID." Karen hesitated. "I don't see why that's necessary." "You claim to be the owner's wife and called 911. That's a serious allegation. ID, please." Reluctantly, she handed it over. The officer examined it. "Mrs. Wilkins," he said sternly, "your listed address is 3 blocks away. You're not related to the Hendersons?" "No," she admitted, "but we're very close. They would have told me if they were selling." "Ma'am," the officer replied, "how did you obtain access to this home?" She stammered. I had a spare key from years ago. For emergencies. I was just protecting the neighborhood. That doesn't give you the right to change locks or enter someone's home. Do you still have the key?" She handed it over. "Mrs. Wilkins," the officer said, "please turn around and place your hands behind your back. You can't be serious. I'm placing you under arrest for criminal trespassing, attempted unlawful entry and filing a false police report. You have the right to remain silent." I stood stunned as Karen was cuffed and taken away. Neighbors began to emerge, watching the spectacle. Some looked shocked. Others looked relieved. Turns out, Karen had been terrorizing the neighborhood for years, weaponizing her HOA title to harass residents. No one had dared stand up to her, until now. Later, I learned she had lied to a locksmith claiming to be the homeowner to get my locks changed. The spare key, given to her long ago by the Hendersons, was never returned. She saw their departure as an opportunity and took it. But this time she crossed a line. The charges stuck: trespassing, unlawful entry, false police report, impersonation. And finally the neighborhood could breathe a little easier.